There is a center in your body that was meant to sustain presence, but instead learned how to dim you. It works quietly in a region you rarely notice, tightening before any conscious thought and deciding whether you are allowed to take up space or should pull back. When this forgotten point locks down, the breath shortens, the chest rises into constant alert, the voice softens before a word is even spoken, and something inside you begins asking for permission to exist. This contraction is not a lack of courage, and it is not a self-esteem issue. It is an ancient, visceral defense that was never released, and it continues to shape your choices, your posture, and the way you show up in the world. Today, you are going to learn how to locate this exact point in your body, understand why it closed, and receive the specific signal that allows the center to support your presence again. If you leave now, you will miss the moment when this contraction begins to loosen and the breath finally drops to where it was always meant to go. The body is about to reveal what the mind has never been able to solve. This phenomenon has a name in traditions that studied the body as a temple. The ancients called this region the spiritual stomach, the inner altar where will meets matter, where presence must land before any action can truly take form in the world. When this altar compresses, nothing you try to create can sustain itself. Intention arises but finds no ground. Desire appears, then retreats before becoming movement. You function, you deliver, you respond, but something essential remains held back, as if life itself were operating at reduced volume. Hermetic texts describe this center as the place where the inner fire is either kept alive or allowed to fade. An open altar supports creation, allowing energy to move freely through the body. A closed altar turns the temple into a fortress, and fortresses do not create, they only defend. This was not poetry. It was precise instruction about how the body organizes presence. Egyptian priests understood that working with this point meant restoring the capacity to exist in the world without shrinking. The mechanism at play here predates conscious thought. When the nervous system detects threat, the diaphragm tightens and the abdomen contracts, reducing the body's exposed surface. This response was designed to last only seconds, just long enough for danger to pass. But when threat becomes chronic, when it comes from environments where being seen felt unsafe, the body keeps this contraction as a way of living. The center does not release because it never received the signal that the danger had ended. Stephen Porges mapped this dynamic through polyvagal theory, showing that the diaphragm acts as a gateway between states of safety and states of defense. When that gateway closes, breathing remains trapped in the chest, vagal tone drops, and the body enters a state of partial presence. Antonio Damasio demonstrated that the very feeling of being someone, of inhabiting oneself, depends directly on these visceral signals. Without access to the center, the sense of self fragments. What you experience is a voice that retreats, a chest that will not expand, or a difficulty asserting yourself without guilt originates precisely in this point that learned to close. And there was someone who lived this pattern so clearly that her story illuminates every layer of what is being revealed here. Connie was 54 years old and spent her days behind the counter of a school office, organizing enrollment forms, dealing with impatient parents, and maintaining the kind of order no one notices until it's gone. Her efficiency was quiet, almost invisible, much like herself. Colleagues described her as calm, but what they called calm was actually containment. Her voice always half a tone lower, her shoulders subtly drawn inward, her presence shaped as if asking permission to exist. 23 years in that position, and she still hesitated before sharing an opinion in meetings. What no one saw was the constant tension living in her upper abdomen. Before speaking to the principal, the tightness appeared. Before disagreeing with her husband, it was already there. Before asking for anything for herself, the contraction had already closed in, tightening the center like an invisible fist. Her breathing never moved past the chest. Sometimes she noticed it and tried to draw the air deeper, but something always stopped it at the lower ribs. Her body had lived in reduced mode for so long that she no longer remembered what full breathing felt like. Connie tried everything over the years. 3 years of therapy helped her understand where the pattern came from, but understanding didn't dissolve the knot. Yoga classes brought temporary relief, yet the contraction returned the next morning, unchanged, as if the body could not retain openness. Self-help books, mirror affirmations, breathing exercises found online, none of it reached the place where the withdrawal truly lived. Eventually, she began to accept that maybe this was just how things were, that some people, somehow, were meant to take up less space. The turning point came at a wellness fair her daughter insisted they attend together. Between crystal booths and essential oils, Connie stopped in front of a woman offering short sessions of something called diaphragmatic release. It wasn't the sign that caught her attention. It was a sentence the woman said to another client as Connie walked by. She said that the diaphragm is the gate that decides whether we exist or hide. The moment she heard it, Connie felt her stomach tighten, as if her body had recognized something before her mind could. That night, alone in her bedroom, she searched for every word she could remember. She found articles on polyvagal theory, videos about the solar plexus as a center of presence, descriptions that matched exactly what she had been feeling for decades. The next morning, before work, she sat on the edge of the bed, placed her fingers between the sternum and the navel, pressed gently, and began to release the air slowly. What happened in the next few seconds surprised her. The tightness that lived there began to tremble. Her eyes filled with tears without warning, and for the first time, Connie felt she had touched something no conversation had ever reached. What happened after that, you'll discover shortly. But first, it's time to bring your own hands to this place and feel what your body has been holding. Bring your hands to the center of your body, where the ribs end and the abdomen begins. Before doing anything else, simply place your fingers there and listen to what this territory communicates through touch. You may find a tense surface, alert, as if a guard were standing watch without being asked. You might notice that the breath does not reach this area, that the air stops before arriving where your fingers rest. This first contact is recognition, the moment you locate where the contraction that governs your presence has been living. Now begin to explore with the tips of your fingers along the lower edges of the ribs, moving from right to left and then back again. Notice where the tissue feels denser, where there seems to be a layer that resists your touch. Then move down the midline from the base of the sternum toward the navel, sensing whether there is a band where tension gathers. For most people, the point of greatest closure sits exactly where the diaphragm meets the abdominal wall. That is where the door of presence was locked. When you find that point, stay with it. Apply gentle, steady pressure, just enough for the body to register your intention. Then begin to make small circular movements with your fingers, so subtle they almost don't look like movement at all. As your fingers move, release the breath through the mouth in a slow, continuous exhale, longer than you would normally allow. The goal is not to force anything open. It is to offer the body a signal it may never have received before, the signal that it is safe to let go. Notice what arises as you maintain the touch and the rhythm of the breath. A warmth may begin to spread through the area, faint at first, then more noticeable. The next inhale may drop a little deeper, as if the body were testing a space it had sealed off. Fine tremors might appear, or an unexpected moisture in the eyes. Any response is valid. Each one is a sign that the message is reaching where it needs to go. Repeat the cycle once more. Find the point, apply gentle pressure, make the small circles while the breath leaves slowly. If you feel strong resistance, do not force it, simply stay. The body built this defense for old reasons, and it only releases when it senses that the touch is not an invasion. Patient presence communicates more than pressure ever could. The more you show there is no rush, no threat, the faster the tissue begins to trust. Now let your hands rest. Take a moment and compare your breathing now to how it was before. Notice if something in the center of your body feels different, less guarded, more available, as if a door had opened just slightly. This is the first effect of the signal reaching its destination. It is not the end of the process. It is the beginning of a dialogue you can return to whenever you need. There is something important about Connie you need to know before we move into the next part of the practice. In the days that followed that morning, Connie returned to the same point. Before work, she would sit on the edge of the bed and repeat what she had discovered. During the first week, the tension came back, but each time with less force. In the second week, something shifted in the way she breathed during the day. A deeper breath that arrived on its own, without effort or intention. In the third week, something happened that she did not expect at all, and that was what changed everything. During a meeting about administrative procedures, a disagreement came up. Connie had a different view from the one being discussed. Normally, she would have swallowed her opinion and let it pass. This time, her voice came out before the contraction could stop it. There was no confrontation, no emotional outburst. It was simply her speaking while continuing to breathe. Her chest didn't close beforehand. Her stomach didn't tighten afterward. She occupied the space that had always been hers and stayed there. What Connie experienced during those weeks is exactly what you are beginning to feel now. The warmth that appears, the breath that drops lower, the center that becomes less rigid. The difference between touching this point once and returning to it consistently is the difference between visiting a place and living there. Now you are going to learn the second part of the practice, the part that turns contact into something stable. Sit in a way that allows your spine to be upright without effort. Let your shoulders settle into their natural position without pulling them back or allowing them to collapse forward. Now notice the position of your sternum. Many people carry the chest slightly withdrawn, as if protecting the heart from something that never arrived. The movement I'm about to guide you through is not correction, it's permission. Allow the sternum to soften forward gently, occupying the space that already belongs to it. As the sternum opens, notice what happens to the ribs. They often expand outward, as if remembering that the rib cage can widen, not just lift upward. Allow the abdomen to exist without holding, without pulling in, without monitoring its shape. These three adjustments together, a softened sternum, expanded ribs, and a free abdomen, rebuild the physical space where presence can settle. Breathe in this configuration and notice how the air behaves differently. To seal this reorganization, you'll use your own voice. Gently close your lips and produce a low, continuous nasal sound, like a hum that vibrates in the chest. Sustain the sound for the length of a full exhale, noticing where the vibration resonates. When it finds the right place, you'll feel the entire chest begin to vibrate, and that vibration will naturally descend toward the diaphragm. Repeat this 3 times, allowing each repetition to deepen the sense of presence. This sound is not decorative. The vibration of the vocal cords stimulates the vagus nerve and reshapes communication between the chest and the abdomen. When the vagus receives this signal, It delivers a message of safety to the body, permission to remain here in the present without slipping back into automatic defense. You have now completed the two central parts of the practice. You located the forgotten point, offered it the signal it was waiting for, and taught the body a new way to sustain itself. Now it's time to seal this opening. Notice what your body is communicating right now. Perhaps the breath is reaching places that once felt inaccessible. Perhaps there is a subtle warmth in the center, a quiet heat that wasn't there before. The jaw may have softened without you realizing it. The solar plexus may feel less contracted. The shoulders may be resting lower. These are the markers of change, the silent language through which the body tells you it has received the message. Now you're going to create an anchor that lets you access this state whenever you need it. Bring your thumb to the area of the diaphragm and press gently for 3 seconds while slowly releasing the breath through your mouth. This subtle gesture can be done anywhere before a conversation, in the middle of a decision, or in any situation that would normally trigger contraction. The touch works as a direct reminder, and the body responds because it already knows the path. In the coming days, there may be moments when the old pattern tries to return, when you notice the breath rising, the center tightening, the voice wanting to shrink. Apply the gesture and repeat silently to yourself a simple instruction. I allow myself to be present. These words are not mental decoration. They function as an access code, reconnecting the nervous system to the state you have just built. Use it whenever you need to, as many times as necessary. What has been opened remains available. The point that once governed your withdrawal now responds to a new command, and that command is in your hands. The practice is complete, but the body continues to process. What comes next is the recognition of the territory you have just reclaimed. The body you inhabit now is not the same one that began this video. The breath has found pathways that once felt blocked. The center has released part of the armor it carried for years. And something in the way you occupy space has already begun to reorganize. These changes are not conceptual. They are happening now in the tissue, in the posture, in the quality of presence you sustain. What was once automatic contraction is becoming conscious choice, and that changes everything. What you experienced here is an entry point, not a final destination. There are other layers of this same territory waiting to be explored. Other places where the body has stored contractions that still shape decisions, relationships, and the way you move through the world. Each layer revealed opens access to the next, and the process of inhabiting your own body deepens over time. Moshe Feldenkrais once said, "What I am after is not flexible bodies, but flexible minds." The body is simply the most honest path to them. When presence becomes a physiological state, it stops being something you seek and becomes something you are. The source that animates each breath recognizes when one of its temples opens, when a being chooses to occupy the space. It was given instead of shrinking out of fear. This movement of conscious expansion is, in itself, an alignment with the principle that created you. If this content touched something real in you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Share it with someone you sense is living with their center dimmed, taking up less space than they were meant to. Consider becoming a member to support the continuation of this work. I want to know how your body responded to this signal. What changed in your breath and in your center? Leave a comment saying, "I allow myself to be present, and my center supports who I am." Writing this anchors the inner experience into the world, sealing what your body has just learned. If you wish to continue exploring this path, there is another video waiting for you. Click on the one appearing on the screen now. The center that has been reawakened does not need to dim again, and presence, once sustained, becomes a new way of being.